Hi, good morning to you all. We'll begin shortly, still waiting for a few more people to join in. Hi, we're still waiting for few more people to join in. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. And if you're joining as a group, I'll appreciate if you can put your name and country in the chat, like if you're joining from a common meeting room. Thank you. Hi, good morning, all. Can you hear me? Thank you. So we'll begin. Let me start recording first. Okay. Thank you and good morning, everyone, for joining us today for the part two of our transparency, enhanced transparency framework refresher series for the Pacific. I really appreciate you taking your time and joining this session today. Today, we are diving deep into flexibility provision, a critical tool that enables meaningful participation in the Paris Agreement transparency framework, while acknowledging the unique capacity constraints our Pacific Island countries face. As you all know, my name is Aradhna. I'm your CBIT-GSP Network Coordinator for the Pacific. Please feel free to introduce yourself in the chats. If you have any questions, you can either raise your hand or put it in the chat, and we'll attend to those questions as we go um, deeper into these sessions. This is today's agenda. So we will start by deep dive into the flexibility provision, covering what they are, where they apply, and how to use them. Then we'll have a short Q&A and a quiz. Following that, we have the privilege to hear from PNG and then from Asia, Jaipal and Jason on their experience in terms of flexibility sharing, applying of flexibility within the PTR reports. And then we'll have an interactive discussion. And after that, we'll be closing the session for today. Without taking much of your time, I'll take you to the objective of this session. The first objective is to understand what flexibility means in ETF context. It's not a loophole, but a recognized provision in the Paris Agreement. Secondly, know exactly where in our BTR we can apply flexibility. We'll go through each chapter to see where flexibility is actually applied. And thirdly, how to actually apply flexibility, the practical steps. Fourth, and most importantly, is also why flexibility actually matters for us as a Pacific Island countries. Flexibility, meaning flexibility is specifically provided for developing country parties that need it in light of their capacity. This is crucial language. It's not about willingness, it's about capacity. The ETF recognizes that countries have different starting points, different resources, and different technical expertise. And which brings me to point number two. Here we see that flexibility allows tailored reporting approaches while still maintaining the five key principles, which are the tech principle, transparency, accuracy, completeness, consistency, and comparability over time. We are not lowering the standard by using the flexibility, but we have been providing realistic pathways to meet those standards. And you may all recall this para 90 of Decision 1 of COP21, which states and also acknowledges that least developed countries and small island developing states may submit the information at their discreet. And the negotiator knew that seats would actually need this flexibility. Um, Before we go further, let me establish the legal architecture that makes flexibility possible. This isn't our guidance. It's actually grounded in the COP decisions and the CME decisions. I think most of you would know because you have been following the negotiations for a while now. First is Article 13 of the Paris Agreement itself. That is the foundation. And then there's Decision 1 of COP21, which established the ETF and specifically called for flexibility in paragraph 89 through 94. And then moving on is Decision 18 of CMA1. This is actually our go-to document. If you are preparing any report, you should always refer to this. This contains the actual modalities, procedures, and guidelines that spell out every flexibility provision we'll discuss today. And then we have Decision 5 of CMA3. It is more recent from 2021 and provides the common reporting tables and tabular formats, including how to use the FX notion key we'll discuss later. And then we have Decision 19 of CMA1, which offers the technical offers the technical guidance and complements the MPGs. All these documents are listed in the reference slide at the end of this presentation, and they are also available on the UNFCCC website. Why flexibility matters for us as Pacific Island countries? We all know we have a small population with limited technical expertise. Many of us have climate change officers with just 2 to 3 people handling all the climate change, not just one section, but almost everything that we deal with climate change, the whole of climate change policy. Finding someone trained in IPCC methodologies, that's actually a challenge for us. And this is where actually flexibility comes in. Geographical dispersion. Imagine we are trying to collect energy consumption data when our population is spread over 300 islands or 800 islands. And we are trying to get energy data, LULUCF data, or the forest, how vast the forest is. So the logistic alone is quite vast. And then we have competing priorities. For example, we need to acknowledge that when we are faced with other threats, for example, sea level rise, or we are building after another cyclone, and like we are in the cyclone season right now. So transparency reporting actually competes with the immediate survival needs, and thus flexibility recognizes this. Limited institutional capacity and higher staff turnover. Most of the time when we train someone on GHG inventories and they leave for better paying job, we try to build systems. We build the system, but then we don't have that much budget to actually maintain that system. And this is our reality in the Pacific. We have data gaps, systematic data collection in energy, agriculture, waste, and especially LULUCF. It does not exist for most of us. However, this flexibility enables meaningful participation without lowering our ambition. We can still have ambitious NDCs while being realistic about our reporting capacities. This slide actually tries to show what flexibility is not. So when we say flexibility is applied to any of our reporting, it doesn't mean that we are not compliant in our reporting. It doesn't mean that it's there, it's permanent. And it doesn't mean that our emissions or ambitions are lower. Moving to the next slide, it shows flexibility provision under Paris Agreement Article 13. This slide explains how flexibility is embedded in the design of the Paris Agreement itself. First, unlikely Kyoto Protocol, the Paris Agreement is universal. All parties developing are required to submit the nationally determined contribution and report under enhanced transparency framework and participate in the global stocktake. And then this section here, there's a shift from strict differentiation to capacity-based flexibility. And then we have nationally determined contribution. So we as countries, we defined our own mitigation targets while we apply flexibility in like type of target, scope and coverage, methodology approach. And then we also can reflect on our special circumstances. Moving on, operationalizing flexibility. The most structured form of flexibility appears under Article 13, the Enhanced Transparency Framework. While all parties must report, developing countries that need flexibility in light of the capacity may apply it in specific areas. And this can include the scope and the level of detail in reporting, the use of certain methodologies, the timing or frequency of reporting, elements, aspects of technical aspect review processes. However, this flexibility is not automatic exemption. Countries must clearly identify where flexibility is applied and explain the capacity constraint. And most importantly, the system encourages improvement over time. The Article 5, which is facilitated compliance mechanism, this ensures that mechanism that is facilitative, non-punitive, and non-adversarial. The focus is helping countries implement their obligation rather than penalizing them. Moving on, I think this is the one of is important to us to understand where flexibility is actually applied in the BTR reports. The first section or chapter is applied is under National Inventory Report. The second chapter, flexibility is applied and is tracking progress towards NDC. The third one is under Technical Expert Review, and the fourth one is Facilitative Multilateral Consideration of Progress. The next slides will be diving deep into each of these chapters to see where the flexibility is applied. Under GHG inventory, this is the summary of the chapters that we will report. If you had attended last week session, you would know that these are the topics under each the inventory report. So in that inventory report, we apply flexibility under methods and reporting guidance. Under method, we apply flexibility in key category areas, uncertainty assessment, assessment of completeness, quality assurance, and quality control. And under section E, we apply flexibility under can apply flexibility under sectors and gases and time series. The next slide actually shows the actual flexibility wordings that are out there in each of the decisions. So if we are looking at decision reference to MPGs, decision 18 of CMAE, CMAE 1, sorry. So in that, the paragraph 25, it talks about key category analysis. For those that are new to the concept of key category analysis, key categories are the emission sources and sinks that significantly contribute to your national total. The standard IPCC approach requires identifying category that sum up to 95% of your total emissions. However, when flexibility is applied, we can use up to an 85% threshold instead. So that means we don't have to count all our emissions to make it to 95. We can just count the emissions to add up to 85% threshold. The next slide. The next slide shows the flexibility that can be applied in area of uncertainty assessment. Uncertainty assessment is technically complex and data extensive. The standard requirement is to quantitatively estimate uncertainty for all categories, calculate trend, uncertainty, and do this for the entire time series. So if we apply flexibility under uncertainty assessment, we can just provide qualitative discussion on uncertainty for key categories. That means we don't have to go into that quantitative figures in modeling and showing the trends. That means that you can write in plain language about what might make your estimates higher or lower. And in that, we don't have to actually have like a complex analysis or statistical modeling. For example, I'm taking example of a fuel. So we can say that uncertainty in our fuel consumption data is highly due to informal imports, or biomass banning estimates have medium uncertainty as we lack country-specific emissions. So like you can explain that in words rather than through model or analysis, stats analysis. The next section is completeness, where we can apply flexibility. Completeness is about what you exclude as insignificant. Under standard rules, you can exclude sources below 0.05% of national total. However, under flexibility, we can exclude up to 0.1% of the of the national total GHG emissions. The next section is the quality control and quality assurance. So QA/QC in short is critical for inventory reliability, but developing comprehensive QA/QC system requires institutional capacity. The standard requirement is to elaborate a formal QA/QC plan, identify the agency responsible, and implement general QC procedure across all the inventories. The flexibility here is that for all of these become encouraged rather than mandatory. You are encouraged to develop these systems, but if you don't have the capacity yet, you can explain that in your BTR without being non-compliant. So this actually doesn't mean that we are abandoning our quality control. It means that we can start with basic checks, document what we are doing, and building toward more comprehensive system over time. And then maybe you can start with simple reasonableness checks and peer review, then gradually develop a normal procedure. The another area of we can apply flexibility is gases. The standard requirement is to report all 7 greenhouse gases. The three major ones are carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide, plus the 4 F gases: HFCs, PFCs, SF6, and NF3. However, flexibility allows you to report just the 3 major gases plus any F gases that are included in your NDC, covered by an Article 6 actively, or you have previously reported on. For most of the Pacific countries, the F gases emissions are very minimal compared to the carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxides from energy and agriculture. And if we don't have refrigerant imports then in the system, then we don't have the industrial process producing these gases. Thus, flexibility makes sense. So that means apart from reporting the 3 major gases, there's also possibility of reporting the additional 4 gases. However, with the Pacific, we can choose on the gases that can be reported on. The another area of flexibility is time series. time series is one of the most commonly used flexibilities. The standard requirement is a complete annual time series from 1990 to present, with the latest year or being no more than 2 years before submission. And I think most of us, we know that in the Pacific, it's very hard to actually get data for these years. So the first on coverage, instead of going back to 1990, you only need to cover your NDC reference year period plus a consistent annual series from 2020 and onwards. So if your NDC uses 2020, 2010 as a base year, for example, you'd report 2010 and then every year from 2020 forward. The second is the timeliness. Your latest year can be 3 years before submission instead of 2. This is actually quite significant because if we are submitting our BTR in 2025, we'd normally need 2023 data. With flexibility, we can use 2022 data. For countries where data collection takes time and state's office are understaffed, there's this extra year of actually gap makes a lot of difference and helps in submission of the report in timely manner. So this time series, if we are looking at the decision, it's para 57 and 58. Flexibility in GHG inventories, parties may indicate flexibility by using the notation key, for example, FX. We can collapse the table, the rows or table where the flexibility is applied, reporting limited time series where capacity is constrained, and explaining threshold for key category or insignificant sources. Now we are moving into the next chapter, that is the NDC tracking. So the under NDC tracking, the standard requirement under para 85 is to report estimates of expected and achieved GHG emissions, reductions for your policies and measures in tabular format. This requires anti-modeling of what your policy will achieve and ex post assessment of what is actually achieved. So the flexibility here, this becomes encouraged rather than required. You are encouraged to report this estimate, but if you lack the modeling capacity, we don't actually have to use the tool or expertise to run the baseline scenario and calculate emission reduction estimates. We can still comply by reporting our policies, measures, describe it without quantification. Moving on to next slide, it's on projection of gas emissions and removals. Projections are even more technical demanding. The standard requirements under paragraph 93 to 101 are extensive. So projections must extend at least 15 years beyond the next year ending in 0 or 5, must include with measures and without measures scenarios. So the flexibility here actually provides the flexibility here is that first, you are encouraged to report projection rather than required. If you have absolute no capacity for emission projection modeling, you can omit this entirely. Second, if you do not report projection, you only need to extend them to the endpoint of your NDC. If your NDC targets 2030, your project to 2030, not to 2040. Third, you can report less detailed methodology. You don't need to describe every assumption or parameter in your modeling. You can provide a high-level overview. Then we are moving on to flexibility in the technical aspect review. The first one is the format of TER. The TR process, even the review process has flexibility provisions. The standard requirement is that countries undergo in-country review for their first BTR at least 2 BTRs in 10-year period, and any BTR where achievement of NDC is reported and whenever recommended by the previous review. However, with flexibility, we can undergo centralized review instead. So the difference is that in-country review means that the expert team comes to your country, meets with your team, face-to-face visit the institutional, examines your system in person. This is quite extensive, and it also also expensive for us as a host country and requires significant staff time. If centralized review happens, then this happens remotely or at a central location. The expert team reviews your document, asks questions in writing or via video call, and completes the review without coming to your country. And for small teams in Pacific, so this reduces the burden significantly. And we can just participate in the review process without all the logistic of hosting a delegation. Another flexibility in the TER is the responding to questions on the technical expert review team. So when the technical expert review team asks questions or request additional information the standard timeline is 2 weeks to respond. So if a TR team ask you for additional information or ask you a question, if they ask it today, from 2 weeks from now, within the 2 weeks, you are supposed to respond. However, with flexibility, you can get 3 weeks. That extra week might not sound like much, but when we are like a small team juggling multiple responsibilities and we need to consult with either agencies or dig archives, so this extra 7 days actually makes a lot of difference for us in Pacific. The third one is the provision to comment on the draft technical expert review report. After the review, you will receive a draft technical report and have opportunity to provide comments before it's finalized. That's a normal process. So the standard timeline is 1 month. But however, with flexibility, we are able to get 3 months. This is quite significant for us. 1 month is kind of tight when we are reviewing a detailed technical report, consulting with ministries, and preparing substantive comments. So 3 months actually provides a reasonable time to go through engagement, especially if we want to discuss the finding with our National Climate Change Committee or other stakeholders. And the next one is the communication on the draft areas of improvement. One unique aspect of TER for parties using flexibility is by end of the review week, the expert team will identify any capacity need in consultation with you. It's not judgmental, it's actually supportive. If the reviewers see you are struggling with waste sector methodologies, for example, they will know that. And they will, and if you need training on QA/QC, they identified that. So this recommendation is then inform the capacity building support from, for example, from CBIT-GSP or from bilateral partners or from UNFCCC. So the TER becomes not just a accountability mechanism, but also a capacity building needs assessment. This actually helps us as a Pacific to access support. Now we are moving on to the FMCP. The area of flexibility is applied to responding to written questions. So the FMCP is where your BTR is considered by all parties in a multilateral setting. Other countries can submit written questions about your report, and you must respond. The standard timeline is at least 1 month before the FMCP working group session. With flexibility, you respond 2 weeks before the session. Again, this is about recognizing that preparing responses to questions for other parties takes time and capacity. And thus this flexibility actually comes in very handy. Just a summary here in terms of the, when we apply flexibility, just a 5-step. So we assess our capacity, we identify our constraint. Number 2, we determine which sections of our BTR reporting we will be applying the flexibility to. We might not need to apply flexibility to all those that I have already listed. Maybe we already have some capacity, so we'll be applying flexibility to certain areas of those already been listed before in the slides before. And then we document clearly, explain what and why. We have an improvement plan outline with outline timeline, and then we seek support. We try to engage partners to help us to implement that improvement plan over time. Some of the good practices in documentation is that we need like a clear statement. For example, if we are using the flexibility, we say this BTR applies flexibility under decision. So what? Improvement pathway plan to develop country-specific factors by BTR2 or BTR3 with support from maybe CBIT-GSP or UNFCCC or FAO or ICIR project. Some of the common mistakes that we actually make is that the insufficient documentation, not explaining which provision apply, and there is no improvement plan. So there's lacking future enhancement strategy. So to ensure that whenever we apply any flexibility, we make any assumption, it's very important that all of it is documented properly. A few takeaways from my presentation today is that flexibility begins at foundation of Paris Agreement. It starts with through national determined contribution and recognition of national circumstances. Flexibility is a right, so developing countries have the right to apply flexibility based on their capacities. Transparency required clear identification, capacity, explanation, and transparent reporting are essential. And then there's a progressive enhancement. So countries should progressively improve transparency over successive BTR cycle. There is also support available from CBGSP if you need in terms of enhancing your capacity for flexibility application. I think that's all from my end. I now open the floor for question and answer session. If you have any questions you would like to ask, or you can put it in the chat and then we'll be answering that for you. Hi, Andrea. Yes, please go ahead. Hold on. Andrea, hold on. Okay, you can speak.
Okay, thank you. This is more a comment rather than a question. I did just want to just reinforce what's been said about, taking the opportunity of those flexibility provisions. But I just wanted to make a comment on one in particular, the one where it's a centralized review rather than an in-country review. Just do be very mindful of that particular one. Yes, if you do not have the capacity to host a delegation, definitely take that flexibility provision, but don't dismiss it too quickly. An in-country review, the reviewers come to your country. They see your circumstances firsthand. You do not need to try to describe to them why you do not have the capacity to do things or what is going on in your country, because they often will see it firsthand. So not only that, when you've got a centralized review, you've got to remember that your team is sitting in Bonn. It's a different time zone, so that can be a little bit tricky with questions and answers. But often, because everything is done via email and written questions, there can be a lot of misunderstandings. If you've got the team in country, you're sitting down face to face talking to these people, and you have a lot less misunderstandings going on. So I just wanted to note that. I'm not saying ignore it, ignore that flexibility. If you have to, do take that flexibility provision, but do really, really think about what you would be achieving by not having them in country. Because believe me, there's a lot of reviewers out there that do not understand specific situations as much as they try. Just as an example, even with New Zealand, one of our reviewers didn't believe that all our animals grazed outside all year round. They were convinced we had to house our animals. They didn't believe us. And we went backwards and forwards quite a few times telling them, no, our animals grazed outside all year round. And we had to send them photos of sheep in the snow being fed hay before they would. And I still think they didn't believe us, but I think they were told they had to believe us. But anyway, that was just an example. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. Actually, you made a good point because it's true that most of the people don't understand how atolls look like or how the life on atolls are. So if we are given that opportunity, it's a good comment that if we have the capacity, we should take it. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Okay. If not, then we'll just move to the Mentimeter quiz. Let me pull that up. I know you might be bored by listening to me, so something interesting here. Okay, so this is the Mentimeter quiz. Please feel free to scan using your phone. Okay, 7, 8. Okay. So I'll move to the next slide, the first question. Okay. So we have all the 8 players ready. 9. Anyone missing? So the first question is, in which chapters of the BTR can flexibility be applied? National GHG inventory only, GHG inventory and NDC tracking, GHG inventory, NDC tracking and adaptation and support. So 3, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so the correct answer is actually NDC GHG inventory and NDC tracking from my presentation. 6, 8. Okay, moving on to the next question. Which statement about flexibility provisions is correct? The first one, all parties can apply flexibility provisions in their BTR. Flexibility provisions are included in all chapters of the BTR, applies to those developing country parties that need it in light of their capacity. That's the third option. And the fourth one is flexibility provisions are optional for developing country parties. Okay, so 5 of you got it right. Sorry for... Okay, who determines whether a country needs flexibility? The UNFCCC Secretariat, the Conference of Parties, a technical expert review panel, or the country itself? So who determines the flexibility? Okay, actually, the right answer is the country itself. So you or us as a country, we determine if we need flexibility and where. Question 4. Okay, flexibility provisions are based on countries' assessment of their. So how do you understand that you need capacity, flexibility? So it depends on your GDP level, on your capacity, on your population size, or on your historical emissions. What determines that you need to apply flexibility? Yes, the capacity. Okay, let's see the leaderboard who's ahead before we move to other questions. Okay, Chipad, Beyonce. Question 5. Which of the following is not a requirement when applying flexibility? Remember, it's not a requirement. A clear identification of where flexibility is used, explanation on capacity constraints, external validation from UNFCCC, transparent reporting. Sorry, only 5 people here. More. That's true. So external validation from UNFCCC, that's not a requirement when you apply flexibility because while applying flexibility, it depends on the country. Question 6. According to MPG paragraph 4, flexibility for GHG inventories include use of simplified IPCC methodology. For example, we just use tier 1 that allow exemption of reporting entirely, reporting only every 10 years, or using non-IPCC methodologies. Yes, you got it right. Using simplified IPCC methodologies. When using flexibility for NDC projections, they are mandatory but simplified, optional, required with full detail, not mentioned in MPGs. So when we are actually using projection in NDCs, it's optional. Okay, this is the last question. With which IPCC tier is commonly used under flexibility provisions? Tier 3, Tier 2, Tier 1, or no specific tier? Tier 1 is like all default. That's the simplest method you can use. Tier T is more detailed. Yes, so it's Tier 1. It's normally used for Pacific countries because we don't have emission factors. Most of our sectors, we don't have emission factors. So it's always advisable to use Tier 1 because we use the default emission factor value from there. Now going to the leaderboards, let's see who's first. Sorry, I don't have any gift to give you. Maybe when we meet in person. Okay, Japhet, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Any idea who that is? Just put it in the chat, your name, who is first and who is second. Okay, now, We'll be moving to the hear experience on use of flexibility from our colleagues across the region. So we'll have Papua New Guinea to share the experience on the development of the BTR and the use of the flexibility provision. Mr. Jason, are you? Hold on, let me see if he's there. Mr. Jason, are you there? Okay, hold on. Yes, Evelyn. Evelyn, you can speak. Jepet, yes, please go ahead.
Hi, can you okay, Jason will be using my PC to do the presentation.
Sure, no worries. Do you need me to share the presentation, or he'll share from his end?
Hi, hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Jason, will you be just speaking, or you need me to share the
No,
presentation?
sorry, no, I don't have a presentation. I'll just probably talk.
Okay,
Sorry for that.
sure.
I didn't prepare a presentation.
No, that's fine.
Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for extending the invite to us to present our experience in using flexibility. So just to give a brief background on where we are, we recently submitted a BTR in January, and that's in addition. We submitted a BTR and a national inventory document as a standalone document. So, and in addition to that, we also submitted a Red Plus Technical Annex. I know it's not really relevant for this workshop, but I mean that that piece of document was also included with our BTR submission. Now, in terms of flexibility, what we used for the inventory, so the first flexibility that we used was the reporting years. So we started our reporting years was from 2000 onwards, and we used the X minus 3, which is like the submission year minus 3 years. So if you were to read our BTR, we would notice that the recent year was 2022. Now, the initial plan was for us to submit around December, but then there was some issue with our focal point trying to submit that online, and that's also affected our inventory years. So our focal point finally submitted in January, and then it may have an impact on our inventory years also. So that's for the greenhouse gas inventory. I think in addition to that, there were some areas like quality assurance, quality control plan. I mean, that's something we didn't really have in place, so we didn't really report anything on that. We just mentioned that, okay, we will try to include that in our next reporting cycle. For the, methodologies, I think that's also an area that we use tier one, mostly tier one methods. I think one area that we used tier two was the LULUCF sector, specifically forestry, because we had some country specific emission factors, so we used that. Other than that, all of them are tier one. the methodology, the methods, the IBCC guideline that we use were the 2006, 2013, and also the 2019 refinement. That's the 2019 refinement was specifically used for the IPU sector. That's for the HFC estimations. So we used the tier 2B, I think, for the method under the 2019 refinement. And also in addition to that, were for some emission factors for the mangroves we got from the that's specifically under the LULUCF we used from the 2019. All right, now moving forward onto the NDC tracking, where we used flexibility. We used flexibility for the projections, the area that the section where we're supposed to do projections. We didn't really have that much capacity, so we mentioned that we're going to be using flexibility for this round. But yeah, in probably the future, when we do have enough capacity, then we can include that information. In addition to that, where the policy sections where we're supposed to report on policies, there's a particular part that we're supposed to report on expected emission reductions. That we didn't have enough capacity to estimate the expected emission reduction from each policy that's being implemented. So we also sort of use some level of flexibility under that too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably it from our side, and thank you. Happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you. Back
Thank
to you.
you. Thank you so much, Jason. So anyone has questions for Jason before we move on to the next presenter? Evan? Oh, okay. So I think we'll be moving to the next presenter. So this experience sharing is from across the Pacific Ocean, that is the Asian network. We'll be hearing from Mr. Jaipal Chauhan. He's the CBIT-GSP Asia Network Transparency Coordinator, and he is climate change and sustainability professional with more than 12 years of experience spanning across research, national policy implementation, and international cooperation. He currently serves as the regional network coordinator for Asia at the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center, where he facilitates a network of Asian countries to enhance transparency reporting under the Paris Agreement. Over to you, Jaipal.
Hi, hi Aradhana, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to this important series of refreshing the ETF. This is a very good time to refresh the all the enhanced transparency framework modalities, MPGs, and especially this today's session about the flexibility. And I would also like to welcome all the specific country to this important series and also the all future activity that we are planning to do in 2026. Regarding the today's topic about the flexibility, I would also like to share some experience from the Asian countries. And as we seen the all the how we are reporting the flexibility, how we can take the flexibilities in our reporting under the BTR. And what I say that about the flexibility is that flexibility is a kind of, you can say, a grant or loan that the countries are using. So by any time, maybe in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the planning, the idea is that we have to remove this flexibility when we are in a good situation, when we are developed, or when we are in a say that now able to report more transparently, accurately, whatever we are not able to report due to some capacity gap or limitations, or maybe some country specific challenges. So from the Asian countries also, we are using all this flexibility. Even the larger countries like China and from this small country like Maldives, everyone have took the uh, this provisions of all different kind of flexibility in their first BTR. And you all know that this is the first BTR, and this is BTR is basically a more complex reporting compared to what they are doing in the past. in the forms of national communications or biennial update reports. So this is we all know that most of the country will use the flexibility provisions. And I can say if there are 20 flexibility provisions are available under the MPG, then I can say all these countries have used more than half, means maybe a 10 or maybe a 12 or maybe 15. But all of them have used the flexibility provision. Some least developed countries and small island developed countries, of course, they use some more, considering their situation and national circumstances. But some of them have not. Even like country like China, Singapore also use the flexibility provision. So that doesn't mean that they are do not want to uh, after even this kind of development they have not done good or they are not able to report, but it is also possible they want to do a more improvement. Basically flexibility is a continuous improvement process. Whenever you use the flexibility, we are trying to say that there is some progression or there is some enhancement is required for that, and maybe you are not able to report that, but under this all this flexibility provision that we are reporting under the BTR, this is also not able to review by the technical expert review team by the UNFCCC. So this is a good advantage for all of us. This is a facilitative and non-punitive, as Aradhna mentioned during the technical expert review process. So and regarding this some flexibility provision, I think most of the country in the Asia took the time series reporting. I think not most of the all of them have used this provision. Nobody able to report the time series report from 1990 onwards. Most of them have take this flexibility. Also regarding this reporting of 7 gases, 3 gases are of course reported by everyone, but not the all the HFC PFCs. And timeline also, even that developed countries also fail to report this timeline within the 2 years. Some of them have resubmitted also. So that is also applicable to developing countries from the Asia also. And some of them have mostly used also QAQC flexibility also. There is also challenges to do a proper QAQC. This is also the most important part of the reporting BTR. If you have a good QAQC, your reports, your data, everything will be a more accurate and transparent. So countries also took a flexibility to reporting a detailed QAQC plan, and just a simple one, whatever they have also reported. And under the terms of NDC, nationally NDC taking chapter, most of them also took a flexibility in reporting the projection with all the 3 scenarios, and also in indicators, and also with the mm, reporting the projection of indicators and also assumptions parameter that they took. So I can say flexibility is a kind of a common thing, not in the Pacific, but also in the Asian region. And all the countries has a different situation, and we all, as we see in the slides also, we all standing in a different starting points. So this is the what the flexibility is that. And I can say there is no harm or nothing uh, problematic to use the flexibility, but the idea you should of course remember that whenever we took the flexibility, we should be aware that why we are taking a flexibility, what are the gaps, and how you are planning to progress. Flexibility is of course always linked to the improvement. So that we have to keep in mind that maybe whenever we are moving from BTR1 to BTR2, we maybe even a 1%, 5%, 10% improvement is required in that particular flexibility provision. So yeah, that's the overview of the flexibility using in the Asia region. If you have any question, I would be happy to discuss in the next round.
Thank you so
Back
much,
to
Jayapal.
yeah.
So we hear that flexibility is common across the globe. Application of flexibility actually is common across the globe. So if you have any questions for Jayapal, no. However, if you do have any questions in future, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'll ensure that we get those questions answered. Now, moving on, we'll be going on to the interactive discussion. So I have just two guiding questions, and I would like to hear from you since I have been speaking for a long time. The first question is, how is your country planning to utilize flexibility provision in upcoming reporting cycle? And what guidance would help you apply flexibilities more effectively? So those are the two questions, and if anyone would like to take the floor. I understand that most of the Pacific Island countries are currently actually drafting their BTR, so it's a good time to like maybe think out aloud how you're going to apply the flexibility, where you can apply under what chapters. You don't have to be like really specific in which sections, but if you are thinking of applying flexibility, noting your capacity, where and how you'll apply the flexibility, that will be good to hear from you. Anyone would like to go first? No, yes. Should I pick randomly? No. Okay, this is the beginning of the year, so maybe while we move on to the third or fourth, I'll be able to um, hear from you on your thoughts. If there's no one coming forth, so we'll just move ahead. We are almost finishing off this session. These are a few of the reference documents that I had referred to while making this presentation. Before closing, I would like you to please take out your time and just to do our feedback survey. Let me share the screen for that one. Okay, here's the evaluation mentee. Please use your phone to scan it. So this will be our regular ending for most of our webinars and meetings, because we need to understand how we can better improve for future meetings and webinars. I think we have most of the people here. We'll be moving to the first slide. How satisfied were you with the webinar? Please be frank and also state how it can be improved for future. One more person is missing. Okay. Thank you for that. What are your key takeaways from the webinar? Any word, maybe a word, a sentence, anything that will do. Thank you. So takeaway flexibility, key flexibility provision, FMCP working group session. Flexibility is applicable to all countries and determined by country itself. That's good to know. I'm able to, relay that information correctly. I need to clarify which areas of our reporting will flexibility be applied to. Yes, and flexibility provision depends on parties' capacity. That's true. And I think another important thing will be documentation of the flexibility. That's also important. Should I move to next question? What can we improve next time? So just maybe the way I delivered the webinar, was I too fast, or the slides had too much information on it, or you need maybe another topic that we can discuss for next time that you want. How do you, or you want to change the timing of our, thank you, to have a meeting in person? I would really love to do that. But there are some limitations to that. Thank you so much. Use more examples. Okay. Use more examples. Try to do that. Thank you. So thank you for joining us today. I wanted to share this before we end. So I would like to take this time to thank you for taking out your time to join us, and hope you have learned from this webinar. And if you have any other topics that you want us to cover from our end, not as a webinar format, maybe just for your own country participants or for yourself only, please feel free to reach out. I can also have one-to-one session to explain things that may be needed to understand better. I have this resource flexibility provision. So what I have actually done is pull out the tables that were everywhere and put it in this slide. So which paragraph and what are the detail of the flexibility that is applied. So if you ever need to actually want to have a look at the flexibility, where, what, and how, you can always look at this reference slide that is here. I think that's all from my end. But before we leave, can we maybe just on your camera and have a picture, if that's possible, please? We are all the beautiful people of the Pacific. Please feel free to. No? Oh, yeah. Hi. Nice to see you guys. Debet, you are alone with Jason. Hi, Priscilla. Okay. Hi, Jepal. Good to see you. Okay, let me just think. Okay, Koila, no worries. Thank you so much. Till we see each other again, please feel free to contact me. And Prashila, I'll see you in February. Bye, everyone. Take care.